So for those who don't know yet, I am studying to get my psychiatric nurse practitioner license, which is like being a psychiatrist, except I have to work under somebody with an MD or DO in most states. Some states are changing that. But basically, I'd be able to prescribe psychiatric medications, refer people to therapy and whatnot, right? So I just finished up my last proper course. I have a couple clinicals I got to do, and then I have to write a capstone, take my exam, and then boom, I am a licensed psychiatric nurse practitioner, which would be pretty dope. I think that's pretty cool that I can do that. So this guy, that leads me into my point here, the guy we're going to cover. His name is Dr. Joseph, and at his Taper Clinic. We're going to read a little bit about him. Dr. Joseph is a board-certified psychiatrist, former FDA medical officer, and owner of the world's largest psychiatric drug tapering program. In this channel, we provide guidance to help people safely stop psychiatric medications and recover from side effects. Wow, he has a disclaimer. All content on this channel is for educational purposes only and not intended as specific or personal medical advice. Watching the videos or getting answers and comments does not establish a doctor-patient relationship. Well, it's a good thing that he put that disclaimer, because that means now that people aren't going to watch these videos and take medical advice from them, of course. Okay, just scrolling through, he's got a few interesting videos that stick out to me. Matt Walsh slams ADHD over medication. The fact that he's agreeing with Matt Walsh apparently is a red flag to me. SSRIs, is RFK Jr. correct? SSRIs cause violence. I can't say for certain whether he's agreeing with that video or not. One video that stuck out to me, though, that I'd like to cover is, can you cure your own depression? With a thumbnail saying, apparently, yes, you can. And this is news to me as somebody who's studied depression, as somebody who is under the impression that depression is a mental illness that you sometimes just have to treat with medication. You know, you can treat your own depression with other things like exercise, like getting outside more, being more social, engaging in leisurely activities. You know, there are things that can help with your depression, but often a problem with depression is you can't initiate activities to begin with. So you're caught in this vicious cycle of, my depression's bad, so I can't go outside. And since I can't go outside, my depression gets worse, so it's even harder for me to go outside, et cetera, et cetera. That's where medication comes in, things like SSRIs. And we don't fully understand how SSRIs work just yet. The human brain is complicated. The most difficult organ to understand, the most poorly understood organ in the entire body. SSRIs are still a fundamental part of psychiatric care, and somebody's not curing, but assisting somebody in their depressive episodes. I know it's not depression, but my fiance Katie has anxiety and takes medication for that. So sometimes there's just no way around it. Okay, but I'd like to see what he has to say and what kind of evidence he can provide as to why you can actually cure your own depression.
Today we're going to be cutting through the noise, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you can do to reduce your risk of depression.
No, that's not what the title says, man. You're already misleading people. Reduce your risk. This is about curing depression, not reducing your risk.
I'm Dr. Joseph Witt-Doering. I'm a board-certified psychiatrist with 10 years of experience. So, I feel like we're constantly hearing conflicting ideas about depression from doctors, friends, family. Is it genetic? Is it a serotonin imbalance? Is it even real? And invariably, when you go and see your doctor, for so many people, it seems like the only thing they're interested in talking to you about is your medication, whether you want to take one or whether you want to go up on a dose. And they're not really focused on understanding why you are depressed. In fact,
I think there is a point to be made here. I think that oftentimes doctors will just throw pills at you and not really consider the factors around your depression and other things that you can do to help mitigate it. I think that nurse practitioners in general tend to do a better job of holistic care in that regard. Depression can often be helped by therapy, by, like I said, exercise can help reduce symptoms, stuff like that. But again, this is an issue, in my opinion. If you want my real opinion, guess what I'm going to say? This is a problem with capitalism, right? Like these depression medication companies shill their pills, which do work. They do what they're advertised to do, but then doctors are kind of taught in schools that they paid to go to, oh, well, hey, you know, like just throw these pills at them and they'll be fine, you know? Like they're not really taught holistic care. Or they don't care to provide holistic care because it doesn't matter as long as people get their pills and they're happy. So there's like a mixture of thoughts here to be had, but in general, I do think that sometimes you do just need a pill for depression. Sometimes there is just a chemical imbalance and a pill is the solution.
For many doctors, they simply believe that it's genetic, possibly due to a serotonin imbalance.
It turns
But
out
by now, I think
for-profit
most of
healthcare
us
is a
know
problem.
that the serotonin deficiency
I wonder how many times he's talked about for-profit healthcare on his channel, by the way.
and this chemical imbalance deficiency of depression has really fallen apart, especially since Joanna Moncrieff published her umbrella review last year.
What is this? The Serotonin Theory of Depression, a systemic umbrella review of the evidence.
Published her umbrella review last year that really looked into this.
The main areas of serotonin research provide no consistent evidence of there being an association between serotonin and depression, and no support for the hypothesis that depression is caused by lowered serotonin activity or concentrations. Some evidence was consistent with the possibility that long-term antidepressant use reduces serotonin concentration. Well, let's look that up, shall we? This is by a variety of, look at all these people who are involved in this paper here. A leaky umbrella has little value. Evidence clearly indicates the serotonin system is implicated in depression. Abstract. A recent umbrella review examined various biomarkers relating to the serotonin system and concluded there was no consistent evidence implicating serotonin in the pathophysiology of depression. We present reasons for why this conclusion is overstated, including methodological weaknesses in the review process, selective reporting of data, oversimplification, and errors in the interpretation of neuropsychopharmacological findings. We use the examples of tryptophan depletion and serotonergic molecular imaging, the two research areas most relevant to the investigation of serotonin, to illustrate this. Let's get to their conclusion.
Is the research bad?
Well, this guy is basically saying you can cure your own depression.
Yeah. If that were the case, I would have figured out how to do that many years ago.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
So I'm just looking at the conclusion of this that says that's not true.
All right.
To summarize, the methodology is inconsistent with an umbrella review, with substantial bias created by the author's chosen quality criteria, selective reporting, and interpretation of results. There is an underappreciation of the complexities of neuroscience and neuropsychopharmacology, and it is therefore impossible for the reader to draw valid or reliable conclusions. A more accurate, constructive conclusion would be that acute tryptophan depletion and decreased plasma tryptophan in depression indicate a role for 5-HT in those vulnerable to or suffering from depression, and that molecular imaging suggests the system is perturbed. The proven efficacy of SSRIs in a proportion of people with depression lends credibility to this position. So there you go. The paper at best is shaky. And there are a lot of researchers here who contradict the evidence there.
Serotonin theory and found that there really wasn't any evidence supporting it. And so what this means is we
So
don't
this is
really
wrong,
know
is what
how
I'm saying.
antidepressants
This guy's
work.
wrong.
They may be helpful because they blunt some emotions. Maybe they reduce inflammation, or maybe they have effects that we don't really understand. However, what I can tell you...
I mean, we do know that SSRIs have effects that we don't fully understand. It's the brain. The brain is a very complex organ, the most complex in the body. It's a supercomputer.
Clinically, is that for many people, these medications don't work well. And even if they do well, for a lot of people, eventually 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, they start to wear off. And so this is hardly an ideal situation.
If you can get 5 or 10 years use out of a serotonin uptake inhibitor, SSRI, reuptake inhibitor, that's 5 years that you're not depressed, right? Like, if you got to switch medications in 5 years, then so be it. But for 5 years, yeah, it works. Great. Okay. Effects wear off in 5 years, switch to something else or try something else. But 5 years is a long ass time for that to work.
For many people. So today what I want to do is to show you a graph which I think provides really clear direction on what everyone should be focusing on if they're interested in reducing their risk of depression. Now, this graph comes from a big epi study by Cristiano.
Okay, we're talking about reducing risk of depression. That is not the same thing as treating current depression. You're purposefully conflating this shit. Why are you doing that? I know you're smarter than that, man. There's a difference between reducing your risk and treating current depression. You're lying. You're lying.
Cola, and it was published in the
I was willing to give this guy the benefit of the doubt going into this video, but you are purposefully conflating two different things, and you are lying.
Journal of Psychiatric Research back in 2017. So let's have a look at this. Well, this graph essentially comes from a summary of all of the epidemiological research out there on depression and its risk factors, and it has pulled out all of the statistical associations. Now, if a dot and a line is on this side, it means that there's an increased risk of getting depression with that risk factor. And these are done in effect size. And I want you to know that these effect sizes are huge. So an effect size of 1 is generally considered to be a very large risk. And so if you have things up here like 5, these are huge risks. So don't be confused by that. So a little bit of orientation here.
Okay.
So when it says depression and type 1, what the type 1 refers to is the strength of the evidence, meaning that there was very strong and compelling evidence for these risk factors for depression. Type 2 means that there was very compelling evidence. So it's not saying that there's 2 different types of evidence. It's just saying that these ones had more backing behind them. Okay, so let's dive in. So first on the list for depression, we have obesity, which has an effect size of about 1. The next thing there, we have 4 to 5 metabolic risk factors. And so what would those things be? Well, that would be things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, insulin resistance, and obesity. And it's not that uncommon to have multiple of these. In fact, I probably would have had 4 of these risk factors a couple of years ago when I was quite sick and I wasn't looking after myself. And these seem to be having a very large impact on the likelihood of becoming depressed. Next up is widowhood. And so this is losing your spouse. Unsurprisingly, you're up at around,
So what this is, what you have to be careful with is this is correlation. We see depression more often in people with metabolic risk factors. That doesn't necessarily mean that the metabolic risk factors are leading to the depression, just that people who have depression are also more likely to have metabolic risk factors. This is a complicated web of overlaying concerns that you have to untangle. Okay, it's complicated. We don't exactly know, does the obesity lead to the depression, or are you depressed because you're obese? Like, we don't know. It's both. It's complicated.
An effect size of 5, that is enormous, but I'm sure that doesn't surprise anyone else. Down here, we have childhood physical trauma.
Just don't be a widow,
we have
idiot,
sexual
then you won't be
dysfunction,
depressed.
And then we have job strain. Now,
your husband died, skill issue. Maybe your husband shouldn't have died, then you wouldn't be depressed.
I want to provide my take on this. Many of these things you can't do much about. For instance, childhood physical abuse, there's not much that the person can do about that. Widowhood, there's not much the person can do about that. Job strain, yeah, you have some effect on that, but it's less modifiable.
Yes, and in those instances, guess what would help?
Main things on this list which you can change are related to health and diet. And that may be surprising to hear for many people, because look at this. If you have 4 to 5 metabolic risk factors.
Okay, so we're just going to ignore the fact that widowhood has a 5.5 relationship here with depression. We're just going to put that aside. Like, yes, that doesn't matter. You can still cure your own depression. Trust me, bro. Trust me. Right? What does somebody do if their husband dies? Like, what happens? And then they're depressed as a result of that. You can get depression from events like that. Okay? There's not really, like you said, there's nothing we can really do to avoid that. So then what is a person to do? Do they just exercise more sweaty? Like, so your husband died? Well, have you tried going for a walk? Sometimes you really do just need an SSRI. We have data supporting strongly, I should say, that they work. Okay? Come on.
That is a higher risk for you than having childhood physical abuse. I want that just to sink in for a second. 4 to 5 metabolic risk factors conveys more of a risk than childhood physical abuse. And this thing down here of sexual dysfunction is often a proxy for other health conditions. So one of the main causes of sexual dysfunction is actually vascular insufficiency. And that goes hand in hand with, coronary artery disease and vascular disease. And what causes that? Well, a lot of these 4 to 5 metabolic risk factors, things like diabetes and high blood pressure. And a lot of these things link back to food.
Hey, baby.
And what we do know from a lot of the research that's coming out.
Hold on. Something more important than this guy. Hey, baby girl. Okay. She's just going to sit on my lap. The older she gets, the more she does this. I don't know if you guys have noticed the frequency with which she's climbing on me is increasing.
At the moment, is that what we eat is playing a huge role in our mental health. I mean, there are...
What's your cat's name? Her name is Winry.
Probably 10 clinical trials going on right now about the ketogenic diet for various mental health conditions. And the clinical trials that have been published so far show huge impacts on people. And where they think this is coming from is they think it's coming from the reversal of insulin resistance. There's something about eating a lot of sugars and a lot of carbohydrates that is making people sick. It's putting them on a hormonal roller coaster where their insulin spikes and then they go hypoglycemic. They have this adrenaline response afterwards. It's also causing inflammation and it's putting a lot of oxidative stress on the body. And so what researchers in this space are finding at the moment is that if you can put people on these low carb paleo diets or ketogenic diets or even at the extreme side, these carnivore diets, a lot of psychiatric symptoms result.
Yeah, you've lost all credibility. Carnivore diets do not work. What the is wrong with you? Carnivore diet? No. I don't care that you said on the more extreme side. The fact that those words came out of your mouth and you did not say the carnivore, like this is the sentence that you should be saying. The carnivore diet is dangerous and stupid. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's stupid. Not in any medical textbook will you find any use for red meat beyond its capacity for iron. That's it. It gives you more iron than other types of meats. But you can supplement iron in other ways too. For the most part, you should not be eating red meat, and certainly not only meat. Vegan diets, vegetarian diets, very healthy for you. Not all meat diets. That's stupid.
Resolve. And wouldn't you guess it, along with the psychiatric symptoms, your blood pressure goes down, you lose weight, and your triglycerides go down.
The fact that you think that your blood pressure goes... Here, let's look it up. Let's look it up. Someone dies, you mourn, not drug your real emotions away. Okay, yeah, but you can have long-term depression as a result of somebody dying, and you might need an SSRI for that. If it improves your life, then what's the problem? Let's take a look at this one. This is just a case study, but nonetheless useful for us. Okay, well, I'll just pull it up here. I don't think there's any revealing info on the screen. So, health expert abandons carnivore diet after suffering heart issues and sleep disturbances. Paul Saladino, known as the Carnivore MD, opened up about the negative side effects he experienced after following a restrictive carnivore diet for 2 years. Here, let's look up. We can do this easily. Let's just look up Paul Saladino. Carnivore MD says carnivore diet negatively impacted his health. Eating mostly meat gave Paul Saladino heart palpitations and a dip in testosterone. Wow, sounds good, man. One of the leading proponents of the carnivore diet has said that he gave up the diet after experiencing, quote, persistence of unpleasant symptoms. Like, the fact that you think that you would even... The words carnivore diet should not be uttered from your mouth without absolutely ridiculing it to fucking back. All right? Sorry.
Down. And so... I'm going to make the case during this video
triglycerides certainly do not go down.
Cutting down on carbohydrates and really paying attention to what you eat could be one of the strongest treatments that you could do for avoiding depression. Now, let's keep on going because I want us to go down and look at some of the risk factors for depression type 2. And so,
again, I don't disagree that eating healthy is good for you and will help you stave off depression. That's great. Great advice. But that's not curing depression. That's preventing it. Okay, they're not the same thing. You're literally just lying.
Here at 2.57, we have intimate partner violence. I'm sure that doesn't surprise anyone. If you're getting beat up by your partner, that's a big risk for depression. Metabolic syndrome appears again. Gulf War veterans. Now, this may have to do with actually toxicity for soldiers who fought in the Gulf War and were exposed to toxins.
Yeah, it was the Gulf War, right? I'm sure it was the toxins that caused the depression. True.
Down here, again, we see metabolic risk factors. And now we've got things like psoriasis here. So we have psoriasis, and then we have this one down here, which is dry eyes with Sjogren's syndrome. And so these are two autoimmune diseases. Put a pin in that. I want you to remember that because we're going to put that together in a moment. These ones here, we have childhood emotional abuse and childhood sexual abuse, and then we have sedentary behavior here. So again, what you're seeing on this graph is some things that really are unavoidable, like childhood emotional abuse and childhood...
Yeah, and what do you do if that's unavoidable, man? What do you do? You had childhood sexual abuse. As a result, you develop depression. Now what? You just carnivore diet your way out of it, man? What's the solution?
Sexual abuse. Kid's not going to be able to do anything about that. Then we have domestic violence. So I'm sure these things make a lot of sense. But what we are looking at
we're not paying attention to any of that. Pay no mind to the childhood sexual abuse behind the curtain that caused your depression. No. Put that aside. Put that aside. Don't pay attention to any of that. That's not important right now.
Other risk factors are really metabolic problems.
Eat a steak.
And really, even with the autoimmune things,
Eat a steak.
are dietary
It'll
problems
fix you right up.
for many people. If you have psoriasis or some other autoimmune condition, what I need to tell you is there are lots of people out there who are completely reversing these conditions by changing their diets, by moving away from inflammatory foods. They do something like the elimination diet, where you get rid of like the 10 most common food allergens and food sensitivities. And you also limit grains, which are really refined carbohydrates, and added sugars and sweet drinks. And people are finding that
he's very insidious. He's giving good advice. You have to watch out for this, okay? He's giving some good advice and mixing it in with his bullshit so that you don't taste the bullshit, okay? You have to watch out for that. Yeah, he's right. You should fix up your diet, okay? Reduce the grain intake, or at least make it complex grains with like whole grains, right? With more nutrients. White bread is shit. Don't eat it. It's cake. All right. It's literally dessert. Don't eat white bread. You're mixing in good advice with shit. All right. That's how they get you. Don't let them trick you.
Even with really severe autoimmune problems, if you do those, the symptoms either go away entirely or they lessen, and it lowers your medication burden. And the other thing that I want to highlight here is that this thing here, having 3 metabolic risk factors,
lowers your medication burden. So do I stop taking the SSRI? I was under the impression that I could cure my own depression, right? That's what the video says. I can cure my own depression. Which is it? Because right now you're feeding me a load of bullshit, man. You're lying.
How easy that is. Insulin resistance, well, yeah, we've got 50% of the US population with that. Obesity, yeah, we got a lot of people who are...
He's correct about many things. I just explained this to you, M. He's mixing in his good shit with his bullshit.
Obese and high blood
That's how
pressure.
he gets you.
That's probably not that uncommon. If I were to hazard a guess, we might be looking at 20% of the US population. And what I want you to see is that seems to be conveying nearly the same amount of risk for depression as being sexually abused as a child. And now what this really says to me is that there is something very important about food that is making people unwell. I think a lot of times we forget.
Yeah, let's talk about the food industry and the shit that they're putting in it. Let's talk about public health. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the things that that our politicians can do to improve public health, right? More regulations on restaurants. I agree. More regulations on food sources. Make them healthier. Stop putting bad preservatives in them. Stop putting. Stop funding high fructose corn syrup. Stop giving subsidies for that. I agree. Great policy. Guess what? That's all progressive policy, right? But since you probably, if I had to venture a guess, he probably likes RFK Jr., right? So there's no way that he would advocate for that shit. Prove me wrong, man. Prove me wrong. I would love to see you advocate for actual good things that would help people's nutrition, okay? But at the same time, that still doesn't cure your depression.
Our head is connected to our body, and how our body looks and how our body feels is likely going to be represented in our brain. And so if you have an unhealthy body, if you're having problems with your weight, it's very likely that's also translating to how your brain is working. And so that's why we see that things like your metabolic health and childhood sexual trauma are turning up as kind of equal risk factors for depression here. And so I hope that really makes the case that we should be focusing on our metabolic health as one of the main modifiable things we can do to lower.
Okay, but you still haven't said, what if I do have childhood trauma and that's directly linked to my depression? What if that's the case? I can't just drop the SSRIs, right? I can't just fix my brain magically through diet and exercise. That's not going to work. Sometimes you just have a chemical imbalance and you need SSRIs. Okay, this whole bullshit you fed us at the beginning about serotonin not being linked to depression is just that. It's bullshit. You're lying. And I think he knows he's lying, by the way. This is a grift, all right? You're too smart for this shit. You're a snake oil salesman is what you are. You got your degree and now you can sell snake oil legally. And the people like this are going to thrive under the Trump administration. Mark my words, all right? He's going to get a lot of people hurt and a lot of people killed, unfortunately.
Risk of depression. Let's go down and let's have a look at the risk factors in later life depression. So this is in older people. Well, the first one here, we've got an effect size of 1.5 for lower education level.
Okay, I'd love to see this guy. The next words out of his mouth should be, that's why we need to bolster public education, right? That's why we need to bolster public education, make it free. Make college free. I guarantee those are going to be the next words out of his mouth, right? I'll bet.
Next, we have chronic disease being the largest, poor vision, and then sleep disturbance. Now, isn't that interesting that poor health and chronic disease...
Oh, well, we're just going to bypass the low educational level. Pay no attention to the low educational level behind the curtain, folks. That's not a factor here. The strongest risk factors
for later life depression. Again, in line with what we've been seeing, poor health and chronic disease go hand in hand with poor metabolic health. And you could also argue that poor vision will go hand in hand with poor metabolic health. So
we should make vision care free, right? Free glasses and contacts, free vision care, free preventative mental health, right? Or preventative health care, free preventative health care, right? No? Oh, sorry. That's communism. We can't do that, right? Right, man?
This is highly correlated with vascular disease. And so if you're interested in reducing your risk of depression later on in life, you really need to focus on healthy eating and healthy diet habits. So there you have it. That is my rundown on the risk factors of depression, including the number one modifiable area that you can work on today, which I truly believe is a diet. If you are interested in learning more about dietary interventions
Just diet,
for mental
sweaty.
health, you can check out this video over here that goes into the...
Oh, you're depressed because your father abused you when you were young? Just diet, sweaty. Just diet. You don't need SSRIs. That's toxic for you. That's bad for your brain. But diet. Just diet. What are you doing, man? What a sham of a goddamn doctor. You should be ashamed to call yourself a healthcare professional. Disgusting piece of shit.
The scientific rationale behind it, or you can check out this video with Georgia Ede, who is the Harvard psychiatrist who is running some of the most interesting research on ketogenic diets for mental health. Also, we have a playlist for dietary guidance for mental health on our YouTube channel where you can go to...
Oh, God. Just absolutely disgusting. Like, no care given at all to, like, extraneous factors that can lead to depression, systems we can fix. And you could, to give him the benefit of the doubt, as much as I absolutely can, you could say, well, he's just telling you things that you personally can fix, right? That's, like, the best that you could say about him, is that he is just telling you things that are within your control right now that you can fix. And you might even be right. It's not bad to fix your diet, okay? You should, and I plan to soon, okay? But that's not the only factor here. And he's trying to make it out as though it is, okay? This is a very poorly done video on medical advice for depression. He's trying to discredit SSRIs, which all the research indicates that SSRIs do help people with depression function better. And he's trying to say, and he also called the video, "Can you cure your own depression?" with the thumbnail saying yes. And then the entire video, he's not saying, he never once said, you can cure depression by doing X. The entire video was about depression prevention. Prevention. He's lying. This is a dishonest piece of shit video, okay? I don't care how smart he sounds. I don't care how nice he sounds. He is a snake oil salesman, okay? This is all bullshit. If you have depression, please, for the love of God, if you need medication, take it. Like, this will get people killed. This is dangerous, and that's not an exaggeration.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more, hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload. If you enjoy my content, you enjoy what I do, I really appreciate any financial help that I can get. Go to youtube.com/AlecGunterTTV/join. You got some awesome benefits, such as seeing early videos, awesome emotes that you can use in the comments of YouTube videos, and a sweet badge next to your name. So if that sounds interesting to you, I'd really appreciate if you join. It is cheaper than the cost of a blowjob from your mom. So with all that being said, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.